We are Maria
and Nicole. We're two secular homeschooling moms that have
been there, done that. Good morning. Welcome to episode 18. What is a homeschooling lifestyle? Today we're going to be talking about creating lifelong learners. So how do you create habits that work for your entire family? And how do you create an environment that inspires learners? Today we're going to be talking about those topics and more.
And as usual, we want to stress that our podcast is an inclusive space for your everyday parents that are looking for education options. We are not here to convince you to homeschool. We want to stress that you need to do what works for your child and for your family.
Every family's different.
Absolutely. And you know your children best. So feel free to take what advice or information you get from here that works for you and chuck the rest.
Good morning, Nicole. How's it going?
Good morning, Maria.
Oh my
gosh.
We're
kind of I would say we're a hot mess this morning, except that we're actually cold.
We're such a cold mess.
We're a really cold mess. It's like 20 degrees here in Texas.
Oh my gosh. I still worked out outside just like our plan says. You know, we have to work out once outside and once inside. And I did mine already at 5 o'clock.
Oh my gosh. I did not do mine at 5 o'clock, but I did it right before I came here. And it was very, very cold. And, you know, we decided not to record last night because we were both tired. We were planning on it. But we know sometimes when we're tired, we're a little silly. So we were like, let's do it today. But now I'm cold and I don't know if that's better than being tired.
Well, you know what? You made me turn off my heating blanket. I'm tucked in under my heating blanket in my desk.
I know, but it was making a buzz.
It makes a buzz in our recording. What is that interference?
And then the funny thing is that we know that. And so we go around and we turn off your air conditioning and we like move
heater,
stuff
really,
around
not
on
the air
the desk. Yeah, the HVAC system. But we do all this stuff and then we're like, oh, it's the blanket. I forgot. So we're going to be cold while we record.
I wonder if other people have a heating blanket under their desk.
I don't know.
It's so cold. I have to. It's just, I cannot handle the cold. But I go out there and I'm on the concrete at 5 a.m. and it's 27 degrees today. And I did that. And I was fine because I was moving. And I get home and I get to my desk and I am so cold. I have to turn this heating blanket on.
Oh my gosh. You're probably too numb to realize that you're cold because you go so early in the morning. Like I was sitting there like trying to talk myself out of doing my walk. And then I was like, no, I've got to do it. I have to go. It's my only time because it's supposed to rain and get snowy and wintry mix today. Like,
it's going to get worse. On Wednesday, I think it's going to be like 20 or less.
I don't even want to think about it.
There's no Texans out during that time.
No, there's not. And it takes like 5 seconds of cold for like everybody on my Facebook feed to start like complaining about the weather too.
Well, and we already got notice that the theaters closed this afternoon.
Yeah. I know. So I don't know. This might be it. Maybe we're snowed in. We'll record all our future episodes like this morning.
You're not leaving. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about a homeschool lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about this episode because I think that that's really the reason that I started to homeschool is just to foster that love of learning. And so I'm excited to talk about today.
Me too. So, you know, creativity and curiosity are cornerstones of a lifelong love of learning. Children who learn to read well become well-read adults, and children who are guided to follow their interests and passions are more likely to think outside the box. Children who are encouraged to be independent learners set themselves up for success in their job and in business and in their personal lives.
Right. And unfortunately, the school system is focused a lot of their emphasis on factual memorization and standardized testing versus the more emotional and passionate elements of learning like curiosity and wonder. And let's be honest, the very concept of mass education promotes conformity to the standards of the state. So
yeah, drill and kill. School tends to be a test-heavy environment, and that creates students who are afraid to try new approaches for fear that they'll make mistakes or be wrong. They also tend to focus on core test subjects, even if talents and aptitudes lie in other fields.
Right.
Another downfall for this kind of environment is having a school system that relies on funding for test results. And so then teachers who are there for love of learning can get caught up in teaching to the test. And it's this vicious cycle. And all of that can be tied to just the politics of who's in charge at the time, too. Like I don't know.
Right. It can be really frustrating. As far as instilling that love of learning and creativity, there is nobody who has made a more profound and moving case for creating an education system that nurtures creativity than Sir Ken Robinson. Sir Ken passed away in 2020, but during his lifetime, he advanced the traditional idea of education more than anyone else. He was a British author, he was a speaker, and an advisor on education. He was a professor of arts, and he was even knighted for his services to the arts, hence Sir Ken. He made a huge impact on the way many people view education. His incredibly powerful TED Talk is still one of the most viewed TED Talks ever. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you stop everything you're doing and listen to it right now. Well, after you finish the podcast.
Yeah, after.
So I will put it on the show notes on our website for you. Every single person, everybody should watch it. But if you're homeschooling or you're considering homeschooling, it's an absolute must. You have to do it. So
yeah, I think I need a rewatch as well. So for many of us, homeschooling is not just the method of schooling that we use from 8 to 3 every day. It's all encompassing and it's a lifestyle. This choice that we've made bleeds into like everything that we do. And of course, we want it to be successful and we want to grow our students into responsible, caring, intelligent, and independent adults. We want to instill in them a love of learning and encourage them to continue being lifelong learners well after they've left our home as adults. So why should you strive to be a lifelong learner and how do you create lifelong learners?
right. And as you say that, and we strive for that as they become adults. I'm really satisfied. I'm feeling super empowered right now because I went to my daughter's college this last weekend and went and took her to lunch with the three of us, went and had lunch. It was such a nice day.
Nice.
And anyway, so she actually told me that she's always bettering herself. It's kind of like who she is. But she actually told me, and I'm going to cry when I say this, that the way that she was brought up and the way that she was educated really did foster a love of learning. So
Aww.
I'm super excited about that. And so that's one reason I'm extra excited about today's episode.
That's awesome. I know, because sometimes it feels like it's a little bit of an experiment.
It does.
So it's nice to see when it all works out, to see the fruits of our labor.
For sure. It can be so easy to get caught up in your everyday curriculum and forget the importance of creativity. You need to let loose. Don't be afraid to toss formal studies out the window in favor of writing stories or putting on a puppet show, telling a story through toy play.
All kinds of creative ways that you can learn. You also really want to embrace the outdoors. Make sure your kids spend tons of time outdoors as often as possible because being in nature inspires creative thinking and it gives us valuable vitamin D, fresh air, and a little break from the rigmarole.
Right? You've had your hiking group for many years.
Yeah.
Here and in other cities every week religiously.
Yeah. And I mean, you and I both are, tend to go after that outdoor endorphin kick every day anyway.
Like this morning at 5 a.m.
Like at 5 a.m. or at 8 a.m. for me.
Right. So moving on. So the next thing would be to encourage the arts. Creativity naturally pours out of children when they have a blank canvas in front of them. Art can take on many forms, whether it's in poetry, cooking, music, painting, or drawing. I know with
theater.
Or theater. I know with us with cooking, it's always fun to have ingredients just on hand. And my kids sometimes just get super creative in the kitchen and come up with things that I never would have come up with, and they taste great. So
yeah,
not always.
Sometimes it's a experiment. It's great. It's science.
Yeah, so having those supplies on hand for them to explore, whether it be paints or blank canvases. We used to have a basket of just 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper and markers and crayons laying around, and they would constantly draw, make paper airplanes, whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a bit. But also taking a technology break. We're surrounded by technology all the time. It's awesome, but it's almost, surely part of your homeschool. But it can also, unfortunately, inhibit creativity. And sometimes you can really ignite creativity by taking a tech break.
Right. Yeah. And, sometimes some of their studies are on the computer and you can't even move away from that. But, it's nice to be able to turn those off and move on to other things.
Yeah.
The next thing would be to read, and more reading. One of the best ways you can help your children think beyond themselves is by reading. It's a great way for them to use their imagination. They visualize the characters and the events that are in the stories. Encourage reading by reading to your children. That's, you and I both love our literature-based curriculum, and we do read to our children. Encourage literature in your everyday life. Take them to the library. Let them pick out their own books. Teach them how to find a book when they want to learn something new, including many of your own curated selections.
Yeah. We also want to say it's okay to make mistakes. Like, teach your children that mistakes are learning opportunities. Model learning from your own mistakes. Learn together and show them how you learn from your mistakes and help your children learn from theirs.
Right. How you respond to that mistake is you're teaching them. You're modeling that all the time. If you're banging your head against the wall whenever something goes wrong, well, that's what they're going to do.
Right.
So, yeah, learn from it and teach them how to learn from their own. So, also let them ask questions. Teach them to question things and how to find answers. How to find answers is a powerful tool, and it goes along with reading and a love of reading. I may not know the answer, but I know how to find it and how to know if my source is credible. So, teach that to your children.
Yeah. You also want to give them a lot of free time. Give them freedom to explore, provide books and an environment for learning. Give them a lot of free time to explore their own interests. When they're younger, this sometimes means forgoing school sometimes to let them free play. And in the older years, it's important not to overschedule them so that they do have a lot of free time to themselves.
Right. We talked about that in our middle school episode, and we will be talking about that a lot in our high school series.
Yeah.
Another thing that's really important is to set goals. Teach them how to work towards a goal. Setting goals together can be a powerful tool to get your child engaged. You can start with small goals and then build up to bigger goals. Make a goal together, and you can work on it together and teach them a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Another thing is to celebrate those goals. You need to be sure to celebrate all of their accomplishments. It helps to create an excitement and enjoyment when you meet your goals. This is an important part of the process.
Yeah. Have a cake, throw a party.
Right.
Our children are always learning, and we're always modeling for them. And that means that you and all the other adults in their life are an incredibly huge influence at a very young age. If you want your children to be lifelong learners, you better keep on learning yourself.
Right.
Children often follow in the footprints of their parents, and we need to model the attributes that we want them to develop.
And like I said earlier, Nicole, not only do you and I both teach a literature-based curriculum, we are both voracious readers and have always made reading and books a huge part of our children's lives. Reading and a love of reading is one of the single most predictors to raising critical thinkers and problem solving.
Yeah.
Skills.
I'm already 13 books into my Goodreads
Oh my gosh.
challenge for the
Okay.
year.
You win. There's no way. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks. I've been working.
Well, that's how I'm 13 books in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What are you on right now?
Oh, I'm reading this really good book. I got it from Outside Magazine's book club, and it's about these people that go on a reality show, like survival show. So it totally up my alley, but I'm invested in it.
Oh,
right
I
now,
love
so.
that. Okay.
Yeah, I'll let
Okay.
you know at the end if I recommend it or not.
Awesome.
Another important thing you can do to create lifelong learners is to let your children be part of the planning process. When a child has the power to choose what or how they learn, they become more engaged. So talk to them, bring them on board. Homeschooling is a cooperative effort, and children learn passionately and joyfully when they choose the material.
Right. And I talk about that a lot in previous episodes. We're super project based here in our homeschool. So when my kids have an interest in something, we abandon everything and just solely focus on that if that's where their interest lies, because that's where they have gotten most of their drive to keep on, finding the answers to whatever questions that they have.
Yeah, I just saw somebody ask a similar question involving this, like online yesterday. But she was, I asked my seventh grader, and they have no ideas. And I was, okay, well, it is a team process.
Right.
Like while we're saying, like, involve your kids and let them be part of the planning process, don't also push it all on them. It's normal for a seventh grader to be like, I don't know.
Well, that's kind of like a deer in the headlights question too. It's like, what do you want? What do you want to do when you grow up?
And
It's
you're like, oh, I don't know what I want. So it's
a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So when we say involve them in the planning process, it's okay if they're minimally involved. You just want to make it as much of a group effort as you can.
Right. Okay.
So just a reminder that this is a weekly episode. We drop one every Thursday morning just for you. And if you have any additional ideas or comments, please come and comment on our Facebook page, on the episode thread, or send us an email at info@btdthomeschool.com. We'd really love to hear from you.
We sure would. We are getting some great feedback, so keep it coming.
Yep. So how do you create habits that work for the entire family?
Again, you have a huge responsibility to model habits that you want your children to have. It's also important not to do for your children what they can do for themselves. We don't want to coddle or cater to our kids. Allow them a safe space to make mistakes and learn from them. They naturally question, investigate, collect information, experiment, and hypothesize. All children are natural critical thinkers, so be sure to allow them the space to do just that.
Yeah, education takes a large dose of discipline. And I'm not talking only for the kids, like for the parents as
Right.
well. Charlotte Mason, who was an age-old educator that we both kind of subscribe to a lot of her philosophies, she believed that 1/3 of all education is discipline. And I mean discipline in the sense of like controlled behavior, the way you conduct yourself, mental, physical training, etc. We talked a lot in detail in episode 9, Schedules, Routines, and Rhythms, about finding those kind of methods that work for you and your family. So figuring out a pattern, devising a plan for your day, that's going to help you immensely. And then you can fold in great habits along the way.
Right. Habits are a great way because you really can start working on these with young kids, but it's also something you'll continue to model and to expect as your kids grow older. Some habits you may want to work on or enforce with your children might be paying attention or following directions, maybe using good manners.
Yeah, those are all great. You also want to teach them how to be truthful and thoughtful. I can continue to work on this one, but punctuality.
Punctuality, Nicole. Yeah.
I know.
You see that?
Yeah. I'm just training you, Maria, to text me and be like, hey, are we recording today? Are you still coming?
Well, like last night, and we were going to record, and you're like, nah, let's just abandon.
Let's abandon it.
Yeah.
I'll be punctual tomorrow, maybe.
All right. A couple of more habits that you may want to work on or enforce with your children might be to take turns or just to do your best. And also gratitude. You can never give enough gratitude.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Home should also have the greater influence on our children than their friends or other outside factors. So don't be afraid of spending less time or limiting interactions with friends or family members that don't support or instill good habits or encourage your kids negatively in other ways.
Right.
Yeah, we want that home environment to be the place, their support and their strength.
Right. And that greater influence, it's higher when they're younger. But as they get older, the influences that they receive get to be more outside of the home. So you really want to instill these things when they're younger. So
Absolutely.
we will include some of the links and ideas and everything that we're talking about on our show notes on our website. So be sure to check that out after you listen. We would love it if you would take a second to go out there and like and rate us. Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We are on all those streaming platforms. So go out and check us out. Give us a thumbs up. So how do you create an environment that inspires learners?
It's a great question. How do you picture education? Like a cold classroom filled with bored kids?
Some people do, yeah.
A teacher droning on about things that students will soon forget? Well, some people don't really think about education other than something for kids to do during the day, or something to major in college, or something that requires a lot of brains and maybe isn't for everyone.
Right.
We're actually educated by people, friendships, our interests and passions, and we're inspired by relationships. We want to make sure our kids have like 3 basic things to self-educate. Something to love, parents, siblings, friends, and pets. Something to do. We always said in our house, like, if you're bored, you're boring. Don't come to me with your, I'm bored. There's always plenty of activities around, handicrafts, chores, a book. My friend's grandma would always say, grab a book and an apple. And also we want our kids to have something to think about, things to see and hear and question and discuss.
Right. Whenever my kids were young, we had a sign that I hung in the homeschool room, and it was an acronym for BORED, for bored. So if they ever said they were bored, I just pointed to the sign, and it had suggestions on something that they could do, and it always inspired them to do something. So I'm going to have that on our website so you guys can download that sign for yourself if you want to.
Yeah.
So Charlotte Mason believed that 1/3 of education is atmosphere. And Emily Cook, who is the creator of Build Your Library, said in her book, Literary Education continues with that philosophy, saying 3 keys to creating an educational environment in your home are surroundings, routine, and relationships. And when these 3 things are in order, your home will be the perfect learning environment. When we talk about surroundings, remember that you don't have to have a huge home and a lot of money and beautifully curated homeschool classrooms to cultivate a rich and comfortable learning environment. No, you really just need a few things.
A home library. Again, while we can all hope and dream of spaces with books stacked to the ceiling and ladders and bedding windowed alcoves
I've
and
always
all
dreamt
of that.
having that beautiful wood-grained library in my
Right, the
home.
ladders that reach all the way to the ceiling. Your library could just be a single shelf or a basket where you rotate library books in and out. We always talk about loving our local libraries, and we visit often to get heaps of books. And Amber O'Neill Johnston talks in her Heritage Mom page about how she curates her home library. I had reposted this on our Facebook page the other day. She does like a huge library haul, and she'll give all these books a few page tests and flip throughs, and then she separates into a now and a later and a never pile. And then she decides if books will be for like a family read aloud, if they'll be personal reads or book club reads. And she then purchases the books that she would like to keep in her permanent library. But, you know, some people are very short on space, so you might not have a lot of room for all of that. But I just love that process. She also chooses a diverse selection of books in which her children see themselves and others who are different from them. And that's also something that we both find really important as well.
Yeah, you know, books have always been a huge part of our life. We always had a library basket. We did a very similar thing where if we fell in love with a book, we would get it from the library, but then we would also in the future purchase it because we just wanted to read it over and over. So
Yep.
I love that.
I do too.
So games are another thing that you can use to create an environment of learning. We keep a shelf of games that we're currently using and a closet with overflow in our house.
A lot of games, yeah.
Yeah, some are elaborate, some are simple classics like dominoes, dice, checkers, and games are great for inspiring learning and just great family or sibling bonding. I keep little baskets around with plain decks of cards or small card games, bananagrams, all the time. We also always have a chessboard out, and my kids just spontaneously play that.
Mine too.
We used to be in a chess club with you, I think. And
Yeah, we
some
did
other-
chess club.
An old co-op.
Sarah just had chess club out at our art meetup the other day in a restaurant.
Oh,
so
I
she
didn't
brought
know
her
that.
portable boards. Yeah, it was great. Maps and timelines are another way to kind of create an environment. It's amazing how much learning kids do on their own when you just pop a map up on the wall.
Right.
They can't resist looking up like where they live. It also opens up conversations about where other relatives might live or characters from shows or animals or places we've been. I keep a U.S. map and a world map on the wall most of the time. Currently, I have a Civil War's battlefield map up because that's what we're learning about. I also have a map of the Mississippi River up because we were doing a book lesson on that. And if timelines have been an assignment in your curriculum, you might also have one of those around. Like we kept ours in a book called A Book of Centuries that you kind of flip through. And then in one of our houses, I had like a timelines figures hung around a border of a room at one time.
For years, we did a timeline. I created this huge timeline, and it went down the hall of the middle of my house.
Yep.
And I'll put a picture on the website because
we
people
loved
have always
that.
asked me, they'll come over and are fascinated. It's like, oh my gosh, what is this? And we did everything from, well, we started back in prehistoric times, and we even put little cards on there like our dog's birthday and, you know, my birthday and when so-and-so was born. So those
Yeah.
are always fun to hang on the wall because if you have a certain timeline event that you're studying, you can put it on and see where it relates to other things. So
Yeah.
I liked seeing the whole visual. So I don't have a lot of wall space, and most people don't have enough because there's so much time history to study, but they'll actually go in their garage. I've seen people do that and use all four walls of their garage and put all the way from the prehistoric times or even the Big Bang all the way up until modern times, and that is a very extensive timeline.
Yeah.
So
we
love that.
loved the one that you had. It would always be funny because like you would see it when you would go to the bathroom at your house. So like kids would like disappear. We'd be like, what? Like we're in the middle of a project and like somebody had gone to the bathroom and then they just never come back. And then we always knew where they were going to be. They're going to be in the hall, like looking at your timeline.
Oh gosh, yes, those were so fun. Another thing is to have a place to store natural finds. When kids come home and empty out their pockets, all of their rocks, sticks, and feathers. So back when we used to go to the zoo all the time, they actually had a nature exchange program.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. You could find something, you could find an acorn or a feather or, you know, anything, a snake skin shed, and you could bring it in there and everything had a certain value. And so you could trade it in for something else cool, like a cool shiny rock or something that they have there, or some basalt or something that they
Yeah.
had. So those
I
are always
loved
fun.
that. I forgot about that. Oh, I did want to say, don't actually keep your feathers. It's actually illegal to keep them because of the Migratory Bird Act, though we probably illegally have a feather or two.
Can we edit that out? Whoops.
But yeah, same with nests and things. Any bird thing, in fact, comes up on Nextdoor often. Like if you have a mother duck that laid a bunch of eggs by your pool, you actually can't move them. You need to wait till they hatch and let her take them out of the yard.
Actually, I think they do say that, the nature program. Now that I think about it, I think they did.
Yeah, we probably weren't allowed
restrictions
to do.
about that.
Yeah.
So take that back.
Yeah. But I also have, I have a random box full of fossils and shark's teeth and dried sea things. Cicada shells, which, by the way, I used to keep on a shelf in one of my rooms that was by my back door in my house in Georgia. But every time somebody slammed the door, the cicada shells would fly off because they're really light. And if, you and I both we do not care for certain kinds of bugs. And it would always freak me out because they would fall on me and I would think that it was that. But it was just a cicada shell.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, if you don't want that to happen, put them in a basket.
I would have moved them to a basket. After one time. Okay, so another thing that you can do that we've done many times is a poetry tea time. That's always fun. So we always had a tea time, and we did other things too, but the poetry tea time was always a favorite. It's a popular homeschooler activity, and we've tried keeping a stack of great poetry collections out, but these aren't as enticing as games and comic books. Having a fancy tea time at your house once a week or a month with delicious treats and snacks, that's going to bring your kids all to the table. It's like, oh, poetry time. Yeah, it's exciting. And then you can read some of those favorite poems that you've been wanting to share. You may be surprised that everyone becomes a fan of poetry this way.
Mm-hmm. I'm here for the snacks. Music appreciation. So from a very young age, we always kept a variety of musical instruments in our home. We had a basket of harmonicas and castanets, and we had a keyboard and boomsticks. Remember those cool boomsticks?
Oh my gosh.
I loved those.
Mm-hmm. Those
Drums, guitars, ukulele. We still have a guitar. None of my kids play guitar, but Cameron plays it when he comes over to our house.
Girl, we counted the other day. He has 14 string instruments.
Oh my goodness.
Between Christmas and birthdays, it's just happened.
Oh, we've got all kinds of stuff. And these can be outside of an actual instrument that they take lessons to play. Just, having music instruments for creativity. We also have an old school CD player with classical music and Beethoven's Wig CDs. Those are my favorites. They are these remakes of classical music with catchy lyrics. They're really fun. Yep, we linked to those in the show notes. My kids also have record players too. Those have had a resurgence of popularity. So just having access to all kinds of that stuff. Another great book is A Child's Introduction to the Orchestra. It's like a book that you read along that talks about the different parts of an orchestra, and then it has a CD included, or you probably can go online and access the musical pieces that they talk about to hear the music in action. So
well, music is a huge part of our house. I have a musician. I have a piano in the center of my house, and it gets played many times throughout every single day. Both of my kids are in lessons. And so, but Cameron, he plays guitar all the time. So right now, I'm surprised it's quiet because I can hear him, and he's probably really upset. He's like, I want to play, and we're trying to keep it quiet to record right now. But one thing that really inspired both of my kids when they were super tiny, like toddler years, was a lap harp. And those were so fun because they would come with these cards and you would stick them under the strings, and then it would have little plucking locations so they could play the simplest songs at such an early age. And it's super satisfying to create that.
I still have one. It's in my closet upstairs. It's in my giveaway pile. So.
Oh.
I know. I'll bring it over here. You can have it.
Another thing besides the lap harp that we love that was just such a huge hit in our home were they were plastic instruments. And I think the set came with a trumpet and a saxophone, and they had keys that were color coded, and it came with cards. You could play songs from an early age. And, kids making music, that is just, for me, I'm a huge fan because it inspired both of my kids to be super creative and always feel accomplished when they can play Mary Had a Little Lamb. They feel so accomplished. So I would highly encourage that, along with those boom whackers and lap harps. So Another thing you can do is to create a creative corner. I talked about this earlier, where you can have a table or an area with craft and art supplies, paints, markers, crayons, maybe glitter, maybe not Nicole.
No, no glitter and no Play-Doh.
She hates Play-Doh too. That's crazy. Paper and other mediums, glue, tissue paper, etc. And just have them all ready, because kids, when they see that, they'll just walk up and just start creating. Mine did a lot of 3D things like paper airplanes, things like that. But there was also a lot of painting and just creating. Sometimes they would illustrate stories that they created. Just don't leave any instructions. Just have it there, and they will just create it at their leisure. And I'm not talking about school hours. This is 24 hours a day. They would just, on the weekends, weekend mornings were a favorite time to create.
Yeah.
Another thing is to just have a wall space or hang art and artwork around the house in those areas. If you can spare the wall, have a spot designated to hang up the art made by your kids and art made by other people. It's really simple to build art appreciation just by exposure. So do that.
Yeah, I've talked before about my art magnetic frames, and I switch out different artists for different things that we're studying, and that my wall space is in the bathroom.
Right. And always, it makes a kid feel special when their art, even though if they're creating one every day, it's super easy. You just open the front, put the new art in, and it's framed, and it makes it feel like, okay, this is a final product instead of just tacking a piece of paper on the wall.
It's wonderful. If you have science-loving kids, maybe have some books with easy experiments and supplies nearby. A set of really strong magnets that could be fun for hours. We also enjoyed having like some paper airplane books and a rope and pulley set, snap circuits.
You were talking about having ingredients. So we constantly, I think it was like a 3-year solid span where we had baking soda and vinegar. I didn't really want that in the house, but out back I had a little children's table, and we had baking soda and vinegar out there ready for them to make erupting volcanoes at any moment.
Yeah. Oh, those are fun. We had slime supplies for a while too, like a whole big,
we did do slime for years.
Yeah, all of that stuff. Julie Bogart's book, The Brave Learner. I've talked about it on this show before.
Such a good book.
Oh, it's so good. It's Brave Learner, Finding Everyday Magic in Homeschool Learning and Life is the actual title. But she talks a lot about enchanted living and education and making learning magical, which I just totally love. And she talks about these 4 forces of enchantment: surprise, mystery, risk, and adventure, and ways to bring those elements into your homeschool. So I got a lot of inspiration out of her book, even though my kids are a bit older.
Mm-hmm.
So go read it.
If you're thinking about homeschooling or you're a homeschooler already and you have not read this book, you absolutely must read this book. It's game-changing.
It really is.
Yeah, so when children are surrounded by and inspired by great learning, they will become great learners. Charlotte Mason said, "Education is an atmosphere, a discipline, a life. Children are naturally curious and are always looking for answers. I dare you to try to hang a picture on the wall by pulling out your drill to install a wall anchor, and your 3-year-old isn't right there by your side, curious as to what, how, and if they can also have a turn." Unfortunately, most school environments are not set up for celebrating this curiosity that's naturally inside of our children.
Yeah.
As homeschoolers, we have a huge advantage to follow those natural interests of our children. So do that. Watch them, observe them, and find out what ignites them. You can provide that creative space or supplies and just let them explore. It's important not to overschedule them. They need plenty of downtime away from TV and devices and structured activities so they can have their creative thoughts and their own dreams. We accomplish our schoolwork in a couple of hours every day, and then they can spend the rest of their day pursuing all of their own interests. This is for teenagers, but if you have young children, they need so much playtime and creative time to just grow and learn. So if you haven't seen our episode of What Your Preschoolers Should Know and you have a young child, you absolutely have to listen to that podcast, because in there we talk about specific things about what your child needs to learn to grow and to develop into a super creative thinker and have that magical childhood we talk about.
Yeah, and instilling a love of learning and life is so much more important than anything that you can teach from a curriculum or a book. And they're just going to continue on with these skills for the rest of their lives. Tune in next time on episode 19. It is a part 2 of our high school series, and we are going to be talking about how to decide high school subjects. What subjects does my high schooler need to take? What electives should they take? What constitutes a high school credit?
All right, we'll be talking about that and more as we continue on to this high school series. I'm excited about it.
Me too.
All right, see you next time.
See you next time. Cheers!
Be sure to check us out on our website at btdthomeschool.com, as in been there, done that, btdthomeschool.com. You can join our mailing list and get news and updates on future podcasts, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at the BTDT Been There, Done That Homeschool Podcast.